Wake up and deliver.
Well, good morning, everybody, to another Wake Up and Deliver, which is episode 4, I believe.
Yeah.
With John and myself, we're excited to be here live on LinkedIn Live. As always, we're going to start with some brain food. This week, I thought it'd be a neat one. Oh, every week's a neat one, but people are always trying to add more stuff to life. Reduce it to simpler, pure moments. That's by Jerry Seinfeld. I thought that was pretty cool for us. We're always overcomplicating everything in logistics. Sometimes it's nice to kind of simplify the moments and the wins. Lots of different things happening today. John.
Half the money that people in our industry make are from people just buying stuff that they don't really need. Hence myself with my charades over the weekend of my jacket.
Yeah, let's talk about that briefly. I don't know if maybe just recap from last week, what happened, what we did. This is about your Shein wonderful colorful jacket that I don't think you've done a post yet, but we're dropping something. You're dropping something at 8 this morning about it?
Yeah, the jacket reveal happens at 8 o'clock this morning. Yeah, so I made my first Shein, and it's funny because I'm like one of these guys who's like, oh, even in the video that's coming out later, I just realized I just say Shein because for whatever reason, that's just the way I think about it. So here I am just like blatantly using like the wrong name as I'm also critiquing the service and like the quality of everything I got. And I can't even pronounce their name properly.
So the jacket is funny. It's funny looking, doesn't fit properly. It took forever to get there. It's not what you expected, not the way you wanted it.
Honestly, though, in all fairness, and I kind of highlight this in the text of my post because I was more bitching than anything else. Like when I opened the lackluster package, but
at least you admit it.
No, but like the speed actually is probably the only thing that really is completely livable, right? Like in the sense of that thing was ordered. I checked all the dates, so I did the original order on the 15th, right? I did, and then I got the shipping notification on the 16th. And it showed up yesterday on the 23rd. So depending if you count, like which day you count as day one, that was like 7 or 8 days. So from, purchase as a brand new customer, they never had any, knowledge or information or whatever, anything from me, whatever. One article of clothing, one purchase that I made probably around midday on the 15th, if not later in the day, like in the afternoon. To the door from literally the other side of the world in a week. So that's actually insane. I don't have an issue with the speed. I think what was the challenging part about it was it after the fact it feels fine, but I knew nothing about what was happening from the time they took my money. And I think that was the craziest part about that experience and how they think that's okay.
Yeah, but I mean, you pay Amazon, you don't really know what's going on either. It just goes, hey, it's on the move. It's moving.
Well, no, like you legitimately can like log in and be like, oh, hey, yeah, here's your product. Oh, we have it. It's at this DC. It's shipping. It's shipped. It's with the carrier. These guys were like, hey, here's your product. And we shipped it. Thanks for the money. And then it's like, here's your tracking number. And here's another website that you can track it on. Nothing works. Like nothing worked.
It's like the old experience, like it used to be back in the day where, okay.
Like I literally would like log on. So imagine even yesterday. Okay. So yesterday morning I log on after this purchase and I go to search it up. And this is like the Shein, their own tracking thing from their own email or whatever. And it says, please wait, still processing. This thing is literally probably like, X kilometers, miles from my house at this point. And they're still processing. And then the only thing that I think is hilarious is that I didn't get, there was no ability to track. There were no follow-ups. Yet somehow after this thing got delivered, 2 hours later, it was like, oh, your package was delivered. I was like, well, you got that right, guys, but like nothing else in between. Like it was ridiculous.
But that's the typical, I guess, most retailers are like that outside the big ones. I don't think most know how to be integrated into that system and be able to have those nice updates for the customer.
I guess I don't know. I just, to me, it like blows my mind that in 2024 that anyone could still be this terrible with updates and stuff. I mean, I think you saw, because I know you give the, you know, the solid support on the newsletter and stuff, but I wrote about ShipStation too, right? Which is a very popular platform for smaller e-com brands to do shipping and stuff like that. And honestly, the default option in the software still in 2024 is send a notification to the customer when the label prints. It's like this is like so baked into e-com. It's like, you know, in the same way that everyone talks about sort of, you know, core logistics like transportation, you know, truckers or whatever, being like, oh, these guys, no one wants to change. Like they just do things their way or whatever. It's like every e-com brand forever. It's like, you know, day one, they were like, no, guys, shipping is when the label prints, and they just don't want to change. Like nobody wants to change. Everyone still does it.
I don't think anybody along that supply chain wants to change, because it's hard to change. It's a lot of new innovative things happening. And this and ShipStation, one the article off of your newsletter yesterday was quite interesting, because it touched upon that new system. You want to talk about that pouch system?
Oh yeah, that was super cool. Yeah, I don't know. It's funny because I did all this research on it and I was looking at it, and then as I was finished and I kind of had everything scheduled for the newsletter, I was like, when did these guys actually come out, their company come to inception? And I start seeing like, you know, information from like 7-8 years ago, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, maybe I'm just like some dumbass who's like been out in the woods and like, I just didn't know that these systems existed. But honestly, for as much as, you know, we talk about it and you know, as much as I write about these things, I had never seen really anyone talking to any degree in depth anyway about this type of system. So that system that JCPenney installed in their Reno facility is basically a micro-fulfillment cube system. Like, think of that as your base. The real difference, though, is instead of it being like bins and totes that kind of are moved around, it's pouches. So that, like, this particular one is called like the Joey pouch system. But like, it's really interesting for, you know, smaller type items, and especially since, you know, you're not doing refrigerated or anything like that, and especially for apparel. Basically, all of these bags just are like on moving hangers, more or less, and you drop your items in each one of these bags. So every bag gets a unique item, and then it knows what it is, and it just goes into the thing. Probably the easiest way, guys, if you haven't seen it and you want to look it up, but think of like kind of like the way that a dry cleaning sort of real.
It's already in the comments.
It's in the comments. Okay, cool.
I'm way ahead of you. I'm keeping you relevant. I'm keeping you going.
But yeah, it's like a big dry cleaning machine, but it's got all your product, and it's super cool, and it goes in, and they spent like $40 million upgrading this DC, and I think honestly that's a really great system for them, being more of like an apparel and accessory e-com kind of brand, just because of the fact that it seems really well suited to their particular type of product.
Yeah, it's a lot smaller, not so bulky, but it also doesn't fit well into, because it's, you know, malleable. It can go into a pouch, makes sense, and probably the system's a lot cheaper than something like an auto store or any of these new automated warehouses where it's super fancy with a lot of robots. But I like the simplicity of this idea.
Well,
you know, a pouch going around, you drop the items are ready to grab. It's simple. I like it.
Oh yeah, for sure. And funny enough, so when I was worried that these guys were older and that like this was old news, I started looking up AutoStore. These guys have been around since like, you know, early 2000s, and they've just kind of built a lot of popularity in the last X amount of years since like the pandemic, right? So it's kind of funny, I actually have, you know, familiar with the systems and how they work, never really cared too much about the history, and like, it doesn't matter when did it start, right? But it just made me look it up when I was comparing it. The coolest thing about this, though, and this is where I do think it has one advantage over some of the other ASRS style systems, is when it comes to the actual individual order fulfillment. Because each bag has just one item. So if I'm a customer and I've ordered like 6 things or 5 things or whatever it is, all of those bags, those specific bags, those 3, 4, 5 bags, whatever, get pushed right to the pack station. So that person who's packing the order just gets that number of bags, and it's like it's like a very simple rule where it's like, no, everything in these bags goes in that box. So I thought that that was a little bit of an interesting advantage, because with these totes and stuff, even if they come right to people, sometimes they're still like picking out a tote, right? There's multiple items and stuff like that. And then the tote's got to all the way go back into the cube. And if it's some of these higher fasting movers, like faster movers, it comes back out relatively soon for, you know, the next order or whatever. These bags, since it's all 1-to-1, get picked. Then the bags just go to like this like empty bag storage where they go back into essentially a queue for being reloaded. I thought it had a little bit of a different flavor for picking and order accuracy. I did think that was interesting.
And it's light, and you don't need to be able to carry 40 pounds. You don't need to do any of that. It comes into a smaller package, smaller weight. You know, a lot of advantages that way, right? I think so.
Yeah, for sure. And then the last thing that I thought was cool was that because of the type of system it is, and because it's like hangers and stuff, it could actually be installed over other things.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
Yeah, so in some of the videos, you could actually see, you know, like floor level boxes, things like that. They had other kind of like conveyors and things that are on the bottom for boxes that are maybe too heavy or too big or don't really fit into the pouches. So I thought that that was cool. So I thought it definitely had some interesting, differences.
Well, if you think about it, it's easier to install in existing warehouses versus some of these auto stores where you need to really take everything out. You can probably install it higher up, have a system, still have this process going, and not take up too much real estate, because it doesn't take up too much real estate.
Yeah, no, it's definitely interesting. So I'll just wait until someone tells me that that, you know, oh, it's like the worst system on the planet or whatever for whatever reason. Like some people that are very deep into it. But I mean, honestly, at the surface, and you know, despite the fact that, you know, some people think these department store brands are just like out to lunch completely. Like I have to believe there was enough due diligence, at least to a certain degree, that there was an evaluation process when you're spending $40 million on something like that.
Well, I want to talk about something that's going to be hot news today and all week long.
Oh my God.
It's super exciting. I don't know if anybody else has caught it, but if you haven't, yesterday, big news dropped. I heard it actually. Kat sent it over to me, who sat off of Peter's post. RXO acquires Coyote Logistics. So, little context here. You know, Coyote owned by UPS. They were sold, I forget, something like $2 billion many years ago. They sell to RXO for less than that now, which I think is a steal of a deal. They got a wicked deal out of this. Coyote has some great product. But the funny thing is, this is what I wanted to talk about a little bit more, is from the people I know at Coyote, which I've chatted with yesterday, they didn't find out until they saw the news drop, as is typical.
Again,
sentiment is,
again. That's how a bunch of them found out that their friends are no longer working for them. They were last year.
Exactly. So, you know, that typical way, and it's not conducive to morale and whatnot. So they don't know what's going on. They don't have no news. They just know, hey, we got an email at the same time the news dropped. This is what's happening. What's next? We don't know. I think it's going to be typical. Hey, it's going to take a little bit of time to digest everything. Nobody's losing their jobs, et cetera, et cetera. But there's a lot of crossover between these two companies. Like, I don't see, you know, Labatt or any of these other major companies that are doing business with them, like General, Mills, and all of them being like, hey, yeah, we're just going to double up on the amount of orders you guys have and just, you know, give them all to RXO now. I think that's going to play out quite interesting. I know it's not more of your realm of the world, John, but what are your thoughts on it?
Well, I mean, you know, what realistically, it's I think like, what are they going to do? Like, RXO is one of the biggest companies in the world, like massive, right? And you know, they spun off GXO, and like they still control a huge control a huge piece of the market. So, you know, there's been a lot of comments in general talking about consolidation, even seeing people from Walmart and you know, some of these big VC and funding firms talking about all the consolidation going on. And I think that you're seeing this. This is just a super clear example in the sense of like who's building what book of business and to what degree, because it's like you can say that they're not going to want to do it, but like what are the do they? I guess my retort would be, do they really want to deal with maybe and now all of a sudden trading like 1 for 10 new brokers?
I don't know. I think the RXO platform is a lot been flipped over from what it was. XPO obviously before was they switch it to more of a gear to focus on acquisitions and how to acquire companies and how to develop that into a streamlined process. This is one of their biggest purchases. And again, having more brokers, more customer service of the same bit, I don't know if it makes entire sense. I forget who it was yesterday. Mentioned that, it would have been nicer to see maybe something like, Transforce buy them. I thought TQL would have been an interesting buy just because it's a different cultures, kind of see if we can merge something there. RXO is definitely an interesting one. I don't know. I'm curious to see how it shapes up for sure. But Coyote Logistics people I don't think they're too enthused about what's going on for sure.
It's interesting though, and I know, and I'm just kind of trying to get because when you said it, I was like, oh, I'm probably getting some stuff like twisted around. You're right. It is XPO with GXO and RXO and stuff like that. But I mean, like the whole umbrella of this company is just is just massive now these days. Billions and billions of dollars of like controlled business and stuff like that. I mean, separate companies, sure, but I mean, all the same parent. Like there's probably a little bit more control there than what it looks like on paper.
Yeah, well, XPO had a great product when they split it off and sold part of it to Transforce, and they kind of focused more on that brokerage part and more of the LTL and the aspect of it. I think was a good move. They wanted to get away from the asset based, and they really streamlined that company. I don't know what value Coyote brings to them. This is a lot of people are saying it's good news. One of the cool ones I did hear, and I think maybe it was Burton or someone else. Obviously, Burton comes up with these wild, outlandish ideas. Was maybe someone like Walmart buying it to help develop their logistical arm, or even someone like Amazon. I think that would have been an interesting take on it. But maybe bringing it back into its roots of brokerage will make Coyote great again, because they did lose dominance for the longest time about being the go-to talking aspect of it. Because I remember even 10 years ago or longer now, I guess I'm aging myself, when Coyote was making its runs on everybody was just talking about Coyote. How did this company come out of nowhere? How did they develop it? The Silvers were fantastic on creating this product. And then when it was sold to UPS, everybody was like, this is what brokerage should be like. This is what everybody should be striving for. And since then, it kind of fizzled out to a shell of what it is today. So I'm curious to see what shell and how they operate within the framework.
I'm curious though. Do you think logistics or transportation maybe is going to be like the food industry, in the sense of like you have these parent like it'd be interesting to see. It's like either they just leave it and they operate it kind of separately or semi under the same umbrella, or they at some point their plan is just to rebrand it and get everything under their own. They just really bought it for the book of business and for the control and for the contracts, like what I mean, and doing something like that. But I mean, it's interesting though, because like the food industry is terrible. If you look at all the quote unquote brands that everyone thinks that they have access to in the store, there's like five companies behind all these brands. What I mean? Yeah. You know what I mean? So I'm curious if I'm more curious to see how they're going to continue to operate it, and if they're going to if you're going to start seeing like, hey, I'm going to try to create the perception of difference and of choice for the consumers, or if I'm just going to roll everything under one logo.
I think it's going to be hard for anybody in logistics and transportation to make it one of the mega companies out there, like you said in food. I mean, food manufacturing, I think, is a little bit of a harder penetration to get into and do. The transportation, you can always be quote unquote a basement broker or a one-man truck show, and you still kind of rely on those things. However, as the years go by and things get more automated, it could go that way. A self-driving truck, you don't need the drivers anymore. You don't need the mom and pops. AI taking over on the logistics aspect. You don't need basement brokers as much because they're connected to the self-driving truck. So could it come out to be 5 different companies just ruling the logistics waves? I don't know. When ships start basically being on their as well. I think will be the big difference.
Yeah. No, I don't know. Actually, okay, so that's a quasi interesting segue though when you're talking about brand, because I saw there was one other thing that I saw. Maybe Per, you might have some comments about this, but there was a little bit of Ben, the CEO of FlowSpace or whatever, got a post going talking about a box that came in from, is it Maersk? How do you pronounce their name? Is that how you pronounce it properly?
Maersk, probably. Well, unless Peter.
Yeah, if you like, I'm butchering it like Sheen and everything else. Like apparently I'm just unsophisticated. I can't mention anything that's not from North America. But anyways, so it kind of got a lot of attention because like this box, like as they were making a play to be like more of an end-to-end provider, had it all taped up with like their own logo tape. You know what I mean? And it really generated a lot of comments about like, you know, hey, is there value in my service provider having a brand versus being seamless and behind the scenes and whatever. I kind of honestly am a mixed bag. I personally think that, you know, do I want anybody and their cousin to be able to slap their logos on my stuff or take advantage? Well, like, no. And do I want them to dominate my customer experience? No. Do I want them to be completely nameless and faceless? I don't think so personally. I think that there's a huge opportunity when you're working with the right partners to get the right kind of value from, you know, like, you know, from your service provider. So I don't think they need to be that, you know, sort of ghostly in the background or part of the process. But it brings up an interesting thing when you think about this, about like that position, to your point about, you know, do they move it under one logo? Do they not move it under one logo? Do they create these differences of choice? I don't know. I'm really torn because I really see such a strong movement towards consolidation. And I think consolidation is going to have a strong link to trust and to certainty around, hey, like we're not going to blow up in the middle of the night. Like I think honestly, with the current state of the market, rates, challenges, all that starts to have to happen is a few companies that don't keep up, can't do this, go under very quickly, leave customers hanging, for all of a sudden the value of the logo to really start mattering.
Yeah, but do you think people have that brand recognition when it comes to like food? Everybody, the consumer goes for it. But do you think that's the same for? It's gonna be the same for logistics. I don't know. I don't think so.
Per wants to come up. Let's see what he's saying. But I don't. Yeah, but Matt, you got to be careful. It's like, oh, well, like that's kind of like, oh, you know, does it really matter because it's never been done that way? Be like, I don't know. You're right. In the past, like there was never that kind of strong tie to logistics and to brands until there is. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden, you know, someone in 2030 or 2035 be like, what do you mean you guys are using like Bob's Delivery? You never know.
Like, they're not sustainable.
Yeah,
they don't treat their drivers correctly. We are boycott. That Maersk company, yeah. Maersk.
Okay, yeah, Per, did I say it right? Because like I feel like I'm just butchering it. Like you know what's weird? Like I see that AE stuff and I'm like, oh man, this is already gonna be a problem.
It's English. It's an A. So in Danish it's Maersk, but in English it's Maersk.
Maersk? Okay, good. Squeaked it out.
Yeah, you survived on that one.
So, well, what are your thoughts though? Because I think the shipping the shipping companies are a good example too, right? Like for the most part, very, very few like big players, especially the ones that either own assets and stuff. I mean, you obviously have people that are, you know, just buying and trading space kind of the same way of brokerage. But what are your thoughts on like the idea of consolidation, logos, like the, you know, do customers want to see more or less? What do you think?
I just before Per jumps in, I think it's quite interesting that the big shipping companies too have a lot of these brands that you don't know about. Like Siva is owned, Per can tell me here in a second, is owned by a major shipping brand as well. So a lot of these shipping big boats have these brands that are consolidated, like you're talking about a different umbrella that you don't realize they're owned by the shipping boats, right? Go ahead, Per. And I said boats. I shouldn't have steamships.
Sorry. There are no steamships anymore. That's another thing, right? But, and they are definitely not boats. And you mentioned about the autonomous trucks, right? And you mentioned ships, and that's going to take a long, long, long time before that come around because these things are monsters, right? Remember, they are 4 or 5 football fields long, wide, and they're big factories, floating factories or floating warehouses, if you want, that's moving around. So you're not going to see. They will be manned. They might be, like navigation and so on might be helped, right? But these things, they need repairs and other stuff. So autonomous ships, that's a long way ahead.
I mean, Elon's working on it. You have his autonomous Elon Musk. Elon Musk, the savior of the human race, according to everybody on the internet. You have the Optimus robots that are already working in the factories. They're going to work on the boats. They're going to do everything.
But you need signals to know where things are, right? So GPS signals don't work, right? Or they are spoofed or whatever they call it, right? And you don't know where the hell the ship is, right? So
yeah, that's kind of interesting. Actually, funny enough with Elon, this guy, I think he's got some of the best PR people on the planet. Like Robert, I saw this the other day. I thought about you because it was like, oh yeah, the Boring Company now getting ready to move packages. I'm like, what? I'm like, these guys are digging tunnels and stuff. I had never seen them specifically being like, oh yeah, we're doing it to do e-com. Like, I don't even know where some of this stuff comes out. And I don't know. I think some of this is what you're starting to see from the AI generated content everywhere.
I was watching a video the other day about the history of the container. And you have this Mark Levinson who has written the book, The Box. And he was speaking, right? And he said, well, this Malcolm McLean, he didn't invent the container because containers had been used back in the 1800s in different shapes and forms and so on. What Malcolm, he actually figured out was that freight was freight. So it doesn't really matter where the freight is. It's not a personal thing. It's just a box that has to be moved from one place to another. So this thing about logos doesn't really matter. That is it on this ship or that ship, or is it in a container or wherever it is, right? Freight is freight. And that was his mindset. And that actually what kickstarted containerization. And I think one of the big issues in today's logistics is that people are treating these boxes that are moving around as if they were people. So, like if we're people traveling, we book a plane and a flight number from a city to a city. And that's the way people are booking cargo containers to move. They say, okay, I want from this port to this port, and I want it on this ship and on this voyage. And that actually means that it's the shippers who determine the capacity utilization and the routing of the cargo, not the carriers who actually know what the hell the network is. And
that's an interesting comment, though. I mean, if they're paying the bills, what does it? As long as they're paying for it, right? But I guess that's a bit of the challenge, the fact that creating a lot of inefficiency.
Go back to your e-commerce thing there from China, right? You have no clue where it is, who's carrying it. It's coming through this airport, that airport. Mm-hmm. You have no clue what plane it's on. Some planes actually have names. You don't care about it. What you care about is what day does it arrive.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's true.
It's the date that matters. It's not whatever plane and wherever else it is, right? I also had just bought something. I thought I bought it from somebody in Denmark, but it actually was when I got the shipping notification, it was somewhere in China, and it took 3 weeks before it got to me. I had to send reminders 3 times to figure out where the hell the shipment was. Suddenly, it was in Holland at a clearing facility, and then nothing happened, right? And then I sent out another reminder, and then they came back and said, oh, it have taken 8 hours to get to a facility in Denmark, which is the standard driving time from Holland to Denmark is about 8 hours. And then it was delivered at 3:15 in the morning. And I wrote back to him and said, I wonder where you delivered it, because it's certainly not outside my door. But it was.
Well, I was about to ask you. I was like, are you guys are they actually delivering in the middle of the night there? That'd be pretty interesting.
Yeah, it was, and it was in my mailbox, which is on the other. I live in an apartment building. It was on the other side of the building. So I picked it up, and I paid 23 kroners and 7 years, which is $5, less than $5, to get it transported all the way from China to Denmark.
Oh, it's wild. I didn't pay anything. The shipping was free. It was like anything over, I don't know, I think it was $30.
Yeah, but that's included in the product. And
Oh yeah, I agree. I agree. I mean, everyone talking about shipping is free. It's never free, but it's the perception of free, and when people roll it all in together. It's really wild. And I mean, these
I had a
companies sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead.
This Saturday, I was at a garden party with some old colleagues, right? And one of the chaps there, he is heading up what is called DCSA, the Digital Shipping Corporation or something. They are the company that set standards for all the shipping container lines of, bill of ladings and everything else, right? He's the head of that. And I said to him, bear in mind, this is going to be important. Bookings will have to be made based on critical dates. Make sure whatever bloody standards you put in place can take critical dates. People should not care about vessel and voyages.
Yeah.
Okay, and that was after glass number 5 of red wine. I'm not sure whether he remembers it, but
Well, we're just go back to the brand and the delivery. What do you think of Maersk getting into air freight, which is, I think, interesting in itself? Do you think it's a good idea on their part, a bad idea? Is it going to enhance what Maersk is offering, or is it something that they should just stick to what they're good at?
well, Maersk is what I call a network capacity provider, right? So they have the capacity, they own the capacity, they operate the capacity, and they have done that on the ships. And I think what, air freight is quite different from sea freight, because air freight is normally between freight forwarders and the carriers only, right? So the shippers don't deal directly with the airlines. And I think Maersk has, instead of having to go through a freight forwarder or themselves being a freight forwarder, booking on an airline, they're gone in and said, okay, we need capacity. There's a problem in getting capacity. So they have acquired capacity. And Maersk has been an airline for 40 years, 50 years.
Really?
Yeah,
Why is it making news now?
No, it's because they have now branding it, right? But Maersk was originally a passenger airline operating in Denmark, and then they bought Estonian Air, and then they operated those flights into London and around in Europe. They were flying charter flights. And then they also had cargo flights, and they were a feeder operator for not FedEx, but UPS, I think. So they were flying cargo planes. So UPS was flying planes into a hub, and then Maersk airplanes were flying on from there, from a European hub into to Denmark and so on.
See, that's so interesting. So, again, Matt, it brings back the point about, are we just seeing more of a shift? Take Coyote, sort of what, what the XOs are doing, whichever one you want to put it under, RXO, whoever they put it under. But again, it's now starting to see that the value of the logos or the brands or the grouping of companies, right? In the same way that Maersk is now wanting to be visibly shown as end to end, even if they've already been doing a lot of this before, putting tape on boxes, getting into other services, seemingly getting into other services by making sure that people are thinking about them that way and not just thinking about them in one kind of way. I really do think you're going to see a lot more. I mean, Transforce is the same thing, right? They had 6,000 names that they'll go, but every one of them written the same way with the same red slash or whatever, right? I think more and more you're seeing this concept of the endorser brand or the overall logo, irrespective of the original acquisition name or the original service name or something like that.
Well, Transforce consolidated it, right? So they're starting to consolidate a lot of the brands under it. So at first, what they do is their MO is they buy the company, they keep the name, and they dwindle it down until it's nothing, and then they put it under the T4 brand, whatever one of the 4 different services or 5 services they offer.
Mm-hmm. One of the reasons Maersk is getting into all the domestic distribution, if you last mile, if you want to call it. We tried to do that when I was still there, right back, and that's decades ago now. And one of the reasons we were looking at it was that That's about 10. The if you take the logistics cost, the amount of money that's spent on ocean transport is very, very little compared to the amount of money which is spent ashore on land. Right, so you can grow the business as an ocean transporter as long as the volumes keep jumping up. Right, then you can have significant growth and so on. But there's a lot of money to be made on the land side, one of the reasons Maersk, they're building distribution centers, warehouses all over the place, right, millions and millions of square feet, right. And that's because they are now taking this integrated approach. That's saying, okay, we can offer the whole way. But that's because as an ocean carrier, they are limited. Right now, they're building up the capacity ashore.
Do you see them?
I ran the first project where we were going to build a distribution center ashore, right? And Mr. Maersk McKinney Møller, he had to approve it himself. And that was a hell of a long journey to get that done. And afterwards, I said, I think next time we have to build a distribution center, we should have one that can float, because then it would be easier.
That's a great point. And I think I'm going to get my last thoughts in here, and before I let John throw his last thoughts in here.
I'll log out now.
Okay. See you, Per. Thank you so much.
That was great. Always love getting the additions and the exposure from different things, right? And it's like
industry experts. I really like Robert last week for this week. It's been fantastic. Anyways, not to get off topic, but I think that's. I think I'll be curious to see Maersk about to say get into the e-commerce piece as a way and find an innovative, different way of doing it. Maybe using the piece. Wants to quickly say one more thing.
Just
go ahead. You're back. Quickly. I have to
unmute though. Yeah.
Sorry, they are in e-commerce.
They are in e-commerce.
Yeah. They
become more branded as e-commerce than I'll say.
Yeah, but where everybody else is focusing on America, right? Maersk is focusing on Asia. They bought Lithong in Hong Kong. They're a huge third-party logistics operator across Asia.
I gotta look into that, and we'll post some information if you don't mind, Per, in the comments, because I'd love to read about that. I think others would too. I know John would want to read more about it as well.
Yeah, but the thing is, why copy Amazon in Amazon's backyard, right? Why not do something else that works in other countries? The big growth area for the future is or for the next decade, that's going to be Asia Pacific, right? Absolutely. And that's where they're building the strength, or has the strength. And good luck to Amazon to come out there and try and do that.
Thank you, Pierre.
All right.
Anyway, you were saying, John, we were going to actually e-commerce. I love that piece. I want to see that person. If you do put it down in the comments, I want to read about that. John, last thought to take it away and I know we went over everybody. Thank you for everybody for stuck around to the last couple minutes. We are 10 minutes over, but it's okay. We had a great conversation, great topics. John, take it away.
Yeah, no, I loved it this morning. Again, super great, interesting stuff. Always something going on, so it's fun and it's great to have people jumping up. So always want to encourage more people to come up and share and get into different conversations. But definitely a lot going on, in the space. And I think, as you get into, everyone's enjoying the summer right now. Well, at least most of us for the Northern Hemisphere, whatever. We're getting into summer, but as that's going to quickly go through and we're going to come back around to September, getting into a traditional sort of Q4 holiday season, it's going to be interesting to see maybe how people shift their offers, right? And start looking for, is consolidation going to be more of a thing? Is it going to be more of an important thing? And who's going to put emphasis on what and where and why? So I definitely think that that's pretty interesting. And like I said, I saw some comments from some of the senior management in Walmart US, and the concept of consolidation definitely seems to be quite prevalent and on the tip of people's tongues.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that though, one last question. Who do you think is going to win the World Cup this year? I mean the Euro Cup. Sorry, my apologies. I didn't need your vote on.
I'm not even going to answer it because I'm gonna insult probably like half the world because I'm not dialed in enough to be able to make an appropriate educated guess.
My team's gone, so I have nothing.
I usually always try to support Scotland just because of my dad and the heritage, but I mean they're not usually like the powerhouse compared to some of the other teams.
On that note, everybody, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Yeah, see, already like leaving. Everybody wants to.
We're leaving. I don't think we have time. Come join us next week or add the comments. We'll definitely reply to it. All right, cheers, guys. Bye.
Thanks.